listeners to Off Over 50 and Fired. Now what with Linda
and Shelley.
So last time we ended our series on consulting with the 7 key principles to keep in mind. Right, Shelley?
Right, Linda.
And this is going to be our final episode for season 2. I'm ready for a break. How about you, Shell?
Yeah, Lynn, I think it's a great time for a break because the holidays are here and you have to really gear up for them. You got to do a lot of stuff.
So does that mean holidays? Are we going to have a special little wine or something like that, Shell?
We are, Linda. Actually, I have special wine for a special podcast since it's our last one. It's called Sextant. It's a really nice Cabernet from Central Coast, California. And of course...
What, is it medium or full body?
Oh, Linda, it's full. It's the real deal. It's the mother lode.
Okay, so if you're not into big, deep, rich, bold reds, this is not the wine for you.
That's right.
And it's not the wine for me.
It's the real deal.
Well, since it's the last episode of season 2 and the holidays are coming up, I thought we could use with a little white wine recommendation too, because somebody might want to gift a little white versus a little red.
Oh, Linda, are you going to whine about the wine recommendation?
No, I'm not going to whine about it, but every once in a while I like to get my white wines in there.
All right, go ahead. Give your white wine recommendation.
That's very kind of you. Thank you. With the holidays coming up, I think it would be good to have a very fruity wine selection that has a little bit more sweetness to it. It's a Chateau Ste. Michelle Riesling Reserve. Very important. It's a reserve.
Okay, good choice. I'll give you that one. Cheers.
Cheers. Since it's our last episode of season 2, we're going to do a little review of the last few months of what we've learned and to celebrate another 14 episodes under our belts. And, of course, introduce what's coming up for season 3. Right, Joe?
Yes, Linda. And it's amazing that we've done another 14 episodes. I can't even remember what we actually talked about.
So, Shell, then why don't we do a little dip back into the past and spend a little time reviewing what we actually yapped about for the last 2 or 3 months?
I think it'll be good to find out, right?
Let's find out. So I think if I remember correctly, we started off the season talking about job board, right? So let's play that segment. Job boards, or places where you can go and look up what has been posted for, job positions that are open by different companies. And it's one thing that can be very, overwhelming because it's a whole new world out there, because most recruiters now and most companies use these sites. So it's things like LinkedIn and Indeed, ZipRecruiter, Glassdoor,
Lensa.
Some things I haven't even heard from. What are the ones that you heard?
Well, Lensa is one of them, and then Nuevco, which is another one that I've been leveraging. Right.
So there are those generic job boards also, but there are also ones that are specific to certain functions or areas, which, we'll talk about. Like they have sites only for IT people or for HR professionals and so on. So it can be extremely overwhelming.
Yeah, and then there's just, some that are, you have to be invited, right?
Yes.
And those are like what?
Like there's the ExecuNet. There's also this other one called ExecThread. And those you either have to be invited and sign up. You may have to pay for services. Some of them, they require like a quid pro quo, where you may have to contribute to the community and other postings in order to stay on the site. They want to see you as sort of a network person contributing to the site. Others, it's just plain sign up and pay for the service.
Okay. But how do you get invited? Because I didn't get invited. So how does it work?
So again, Shelley, it's all who you know. It's the old networking game. It's all about like people knowing each other and extending out invitations to others that they know in their circle, and they can feel as if that they will contribute to the site. So a lot of it gets back to networking.
We did talk about job boards. We also kicked off our interviewing series about when the rubber meets the road, and our first tip about how to really prepare yourselves for interviews and some expected interviewing techniques that are used at most companies. So, Linda, it's really important that you make sure that we get our stories together, right, and ready. And a great approach to pull these stories together is, one of them is leveraging STAR, which is really about talking about the situation. So, on your interview, you talk about a situation, a particular thing that was occurring for you, the task at hand, the action that you did, to uncover the challenge or whatever, and then finally what the results were.
Right. And I think one of the things that you want to do for the star is you want to get examples that show a situation where there was a huge challenge, right? And that you could actually have a result coming from that challenge. So you want something that was a challenge. You may want to take something that went well or something that you did from a strategic perspective. So look at all the different ways that you can look at STAR to show, different parts of how you can tackle problems and or move an organization forward, right? So just don't think about one good story. Think about them from different dimensions and have one ready and in your back pocket for your interview. So that was about preparation and preparing for the interviews. But this series went on, right, Shelley?
It went on and on and on, but that's because there was a lot of good stuff out there. So now for the execution of your interview, we also gave our listeners some helpful hints that you should practice before going on the interview. So the very first one we wanted to talk about is just being sincere in your answers. You want to make sure that you are conveying sincerity with people because they want to believe you and you want to build that credibility. So that's important.
Absolutely. I think credibility and trust, you want to make sure that you try to engender that with whether that person is the HR screener or it's the manager at each level. That's very important to do. And you can only do that by being sincere. All right, and number 2 is watch the length of answers, making sure that you answer, and what they say is to answer within 30 seconds to 2 minutes.
Number 3 is really about needing to listen and making sure that you can reiterate and play back some of the challenges or something that you've heard or topics in that conversation so they really understand you're getting what you've been chatting about.
So number 4 is about asking questions. Right? In order to really have a dialogue and exchange and really get a conversation going with that person, you need to also be prepared to listen to what they say and then ask questions back.
And number 5 is about connecting the dots wherever possible. I like the idea about asking questions because what it helps you do then is it sets you up to say, how do you start connecting all the dots? How are all these different things related? About what you've learned either through the conversation or if you've looked at the company's mission, how it all links and how your job role and your unique skill set and all that experience that you're bringing can really come through and help convey, bringing it all to life.
All right, number 6, of course, is taking those notes. It's a lot to do in an interview, like listening, getting ready to maybe ask questions and respond, and thinking about all the visual cues, the eye contact, and so on. But it's important that you take notes. We had an episode around frequently asked questions, and our favorite was number 4. Yes, it was one of our favorites. And that question was, where do you see yourself in 5 years? So it's our favorite sarcastically. I hope everyone realizes.
I hate that question, Linda. It's so annoying to ask somebody who's over 50. I really want to, when somebody asks me that, I want to just basically say, am I still breathing? I really want to be breathing in 5 years. That's what I want to answer because it's ridiculous.
So Shelley, seriously, how would you answer that question? Especially for those, that are over 50. How should they kind of address that question?
Yeah, well, I try to think about it in a way that I want to be a little bit more strategic. So I kind of pose it up as I want to be more of a thought leader.
And the other way you can also is talking about the value that you can bring to the organization, and that you can help enable their success, and you want to see their success in their business in 5 years, and put it more in terms of the company versus yourself.
So you mean, Linda, I really can't say I hope I'm still alive in 5 years?
That's right. You might want to refrain from that. Well, I'm happy to report that Shelley is still alive and kicking. Right, Shell?
That's right, Lynn. I'm still here. I'm hanging on by a thread, but I'm here.
So another area that's quite uncomfortable, besides interviewing, is salary negotiations. We actually compiled, with the help of our friend Phil Reeve, 7 salary negotiation tactics. So let's hear them.
The very first tip, Linda, is about doing your homework, right? Make sure you really know what your real market value is before you actually start your job search.
tip number 2 is that you really have to be realistic and ensure that what your expectations are going to match the actual job and what the job posting has been.
Number 3, which I absolutely love because we suck at negotiation, is if you have the luxury of having a recruiter working for you, you basically have them pre-negotiate for you on your behalf.
Tip number 4, always express gratitude to whomever extends the offer. They're inviting you to join the team, and you want to make sure that you're grateful and that you give a response back.
Tip number 5 is once you thank them, is you also want to make sure you give yourself enough time, so take a breath and review the offer in detail because it's a really important decision.
But unfortunately, you can't leave them hanging. You can't just take your time, and that's number 6. You have to give them a definitive decision, and you have to do it within a reasonable amount of time.
Tip number 7 is if you don't take the offer, you're learning, you're building your skills, and you're acquiring experience. So you start to get really good at the art of negotiation and preparing your answers or whatever, but it's a learning experience. They really helped us develop a framework to get to those really tough discussions.
And so we actually started another series that we actually ended season 2 on, which was all about entrepreneurship and consulting.
And we had a few guest speakers. One was a seasoned consultant, Joanna.
And we also had a first-timer talking about her experience starting out in consulting. So it was nice to have seasoned and someone just starting.
Yep, so let's hear from Joanna about how she got started or how over the years she was able to toggle between consulting projects and full-time employment.
I'm always open to opportunities. So throughout my whole career, I've always talked to a lot of people, and when an opportunity arose, I would go after it. It was just, my feeling was that if I couldn't get a consulting project, I might get a full-time project. So one of the biggest clients I had when I first started out was a large company in Northern California. I'm a Californian by
relocation,
by heart, and they offered me a long-term relationship, but they weren't really willing to commit. So I pushed the envelope and said, "You either sign a contract or you hire me." And they said, "Oh, yeah, sure." And I got hired. I was very lucky, and that was the first thing. So doing that, and then on my resume, as you look at the fact that I've worked for large companies, then I've got a small company that I'm doing consulting work with, then I go work again in a large company, I come out again doing consulting. So I've been able to build it into my resume and position myself to show progression.
That was really insightful hearing from a seasoned veteran. Now let's hear from Susie, who took, very interestingly, some personal goals that she had and turned them into a consulting gig. Let's hear how she actually merged the two.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about the personal casita again. It's something that's really been very helpful to me as part of this journey. And it's a simple visual representation of a personal strategic plan. And casita means little house. And this visualization follows the structure of a house because there's a roof, which is your mission or vision statement, a structure, which is your areas of focus, and then pillars holding up the structure and the roof. And those are the specific activities that support your focus areas and your mission. So one of my areas of focus was professional development, which was about keeping my skills sharp and developing new skills. Another key area of focus was spending more time focused on my daughter, who has significant special needs. And I wanted to use this time to learn about resources and get to know other parents with children like her. So I started connecting with people with these two ideas in mind: my desire to do better at my specific professional skills and learn more about the special needs community. And the good news is that when I put those two things together, there were people and organizations out there who found that combination helpful. And that ended up being a really great business opportunity, which for me really means when an individual's skills are matched with an unmet need out in the world. And that's what